Well, on this episode, we try to look to the future in terms of not so much the energy resources, but the workforce. And we're very delighted to have Mike Hauser with us, who's been a long time collaborator, partner with University of Southern California, and with Dr. Ashagi and his work, and also an old friend of mine from Chevron. So we'll try not to tell too many old war stories and kind of stick to the script here. But welcome, Mike, to the Future of Energy podcast. And we want to thank you for taking the time to visit with us on season two. Could you introduce yourself, give a little personal and industry background, and tell us what got you involved with the University of Southern California?
Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm glad you asked for me to participate. I'll go way back. I was born in Oklahoma, and I grew up mostly in Johnson County, Kansas, the southern part of Kansas City. And my dad, he worked for General Mills as a cereal chemist, and my mom was a teacher and a doctor in education. And the funny thing, a funny fact, I guess, is that we took family vacations every summer all over the country, even though we couldn't afford it. And I didn't know this till way after the fact. My dad was overcharging his credit cards to get us around the country. There's a story behind that because that's how I became a rock hound. We always went looking for rocks and minerals. So I attended the University of Missouri at Rolla. It's a great engineering school, and it actually waived tuition for the Kansas neighbors. So that was a good insight and reason to go there. And you know, kind of getting the rockhound blood in my blood. Geology was very interesting to me, and when I found out there was such a thing as a geological engineer at Rolla. And then I found out it could be specialized with the petroleum option. That's what I did. So I graduated from there with that degree. And I worked one summer in the oil fields of Oklahoma, learned a lot about just the basic roustabout type work and how oil fields operate. And that was enough to decide that's really where I wanted to go when I graduated. That's kind of the story for getting me to being in the workforce. So I graduated in 1978. And I also went to work for Chevron in 1978 as a production engineer in San Joaquin Valley in Central California. And that's where I really learned the basics of our oil and gas production industry because I was actually had a full-time role versus being a summer hire. And that's where things were launched. And even though that was my first assignment, I probably learned more in that role than the whole rest of the roles I had. Mainly because I was able to learn the fundamentals of how oil and gas production works and all the nuances and what works and what doesn't work. And, my 35 years at Chevron took me to two other locations in California, Alaska, back to California, then to New Orleans for the Gulf of Mexico offshore experience and even acquisitions and divestitures. And from there, I went to Houston, where I ended up spending more time than any other location for the operations and technology roles across the central U.S. Manager for the Central America and the technology company was developing and leading Chevron's smart oil field program we called iField. And that became an international endeavor. And that got me to where I finished my career in that role. And of course, Jim was with alongside for a lot of that time as well.
Well, I totally agree that that the early days in the oil patch are some of the most instructive, and it's where I learned seismic recording and processing, and you learned the oil field production, kind of techniques. And I always tell people I had two international assignments in my career. One was to the North Sea, where I worked in London, and the other was New Orleans, where we worked in the Gulf Coast. And you were the supervisor that took me offshore for the first time. So I want to thank you for that. So how did the connections with USC started? And I understand there's this initiative called CSOFT. Can you explain a little bit about that and about what CSOFT was trying to do?
Yeah, yes, definitely. So I was in the I field role when that happened, and that was my last role, as I mentioned before. And we had an opportunity to partner with the Petroleum Engineering Department at USC. And there was a couple of connections between Upper Chevron management and USC management. And through the discussions, they decided to develop a joint center and centered around smart oil field technologies. And CSOFT was launched, and what CSOFT stood for was a Center for Interactive Smart Oil Field Technologies. And we enjoyed an 11-year run with that center. It was co-managed by Dr. Ashagi, the head of the Petroleum Engineering Department, and myself, being the head of iField. And it was one of the most enjoyable times, I guess, for my overall, because that role also took me into the international areas as well. So the learning curve was steep, but very, very enjoyable, and still can benefit from that today. And our relationship was so close, Dr. Shoggy and I, that I looked out for USC more than Chevron, and he looked out for Chevron more than USC. And that kind of balance worked well for us to be really joined at the hip and co-managing things in an enjoyable manner. Now, when the retirement date came up, it's 2013. I retired, and we decided to move from Houston to Tennessee, where I am now, and built our forever home. And Dr. Shoggy actually called my wife, Paula, and said, "Do I have your permission to ask Mike to come do some work for us?" Which she said yes. And when he brought me back, we've been doing part-time consulting work on a various different little projects. And it's the lead time for true research is long, and there are some things that got off the ground but not very far, but we learned a lot. And the most rewarding and successful part of my interaction with USC has been the last one, where we've been working on workforce development for the energy industry.
Well, the topic for this episode is the next generation of energy workforce, which fits right into your current kind of consulting effort collaboration with USC. And as part of that, we understand that you recently kind of prepared a paper on this topic for the Western Region SPE conference coming up here within a few weeks. Um, from that paper, what were your conclusions? What are the major challenges in recruiting, training, retraining, retaining the next generation of workforce? You had a long career, just like I did in the oil and gas industry.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see the highlights of working for this industry that might attract that next generation workforce?
There's a number of them. It was um, an interesting journey to get to the publishing the paper, because it was an elapsed 12 months of research on from trade journals, other articles, people, and really trying to understand where we were, where we have been, where are we now, and where is it likely to go. And as you probably could imagine, it's been pretty dynamic over the last year. And so with all that research, I just put it together and categorized it, got a lot of feedback and interaction from my colleagues. And the bottom line is, when you look at the forecast, the needs of energy for the world, it's only going to keep going up. And I might jump to the bottom line to kind of set the stage. And in my view, and a lot of people's views now, pitting different types of energies against each other just got to stop, because we need them all, and they all might not be enough until new things are developed. So that's kind of the story. That's the kind of the final paper conclusion is we need it all. There's a lot of opportunity, and Generation Z is the main feeder to the future of the workforce, as you know, as of today. And most of Generation Z's knowledge is pretty low around the energy industry. So, but the little bit we've done to interact with that age group, the light bulbs come on, their eyes light up, and they understand what's really true about the industry and what it can afford for them. And we've had both on the engineering side, good discussions at USC, and we've engaged the Los Angeles Technical Trade Center right by USC, who crank out skilled laborers and all the kinds of different trades, and that's been rewarding. And there's a lot more out there now in the public that the traditional get out of high school, go to university, slug it out for the career there, come out into the workforce, and with debt, most likely. And some of a good percentage of the Generation Zs from surveys we looked at and presented in the paper are thinking that's maybe not what I want to do. And the skilled labor force is a very compelling way to go. So you got two things, you got two carrots to put out there. So any individual can kind of look at the pros and cons of each and make an informed decision. But they can't make an informed decision. And also the public and families that are associated with those potential workers. And where that has happened, good things have happened because of that. There have been a lot of changed minds, and even I think this week there was an article out there that showed that the people that are coming out of high school are really starting to rethink which path they want to be on, a skilled labor path or a professional path. And the salaries are not a whole lot different. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And the good news is we need them both. And I think I think when people realize that you put those two carrots out there of what kind of jobs are going to be needed and how many and where on both sides of the equation, the future is there to be had in a very successful way by those who want to pursue it.
I guess you raised an important point, and we don't just need petroleum engineers and geoscientists. We need the welders and the pipe fitters and the drilling hands and the production hands and a whole bunch of people that don't need a university degree, but it's just kind of a basic qualification in a trade school kind of thing, and then your experience go and the whole idea of getting your hands on something and making something is maybe more popular to Gen Z than some of the other kind of aspects that sold it before. So we have to resell the importance of the opportunities in energy. Is that true?
I think it is. Most a high percentage of the public and prospective workers, the students, have probably typically been fed by the media for what they think about the energy industry, which is almost always wrong. And so the educating of what's really reality and what are the opportunities and where can those opportunities take you, the dialogue needs to start happening much earlier in these prospective workers' lives than just waiting until they go to college or not.
So reaching into the high schools as early as you possibly can. Uh, we understand again. I know your paper talks about this. Is the petroleum engineering enrollment and other disciplines related to kind of subsurface energy, like petroleum geology, your kind of degree, and are greatly affected by oil and gas prices. So there tends to be, up and up and down, just, following oil price, kind of changes with enrollment and price change kind of lagging maybe by a couple of years. Um, but with commodity prices, doing their thing with their kind of cycles, the timeline to produce a new engineer at a university, is 4 or 5 years, right, to get your degree. So when there tends to be a problem between when the industry needs engineers and when the schools have them, to release. And like maybe the thing about the trade schools make it a little bit shorter kind of time lag with regard to that. But how does the industry deal with this difference between, their demand driven by commodity prices and the industry's process of, their 4 or 5 year curriculum? How do we sync those two?
It's a really good question because it's so true, and it also is just reality. And I think it also comes under the transparently talking about what's likely to happen in our industry, and it will be cyclical. It'll have boom times and it'll have tighter times, and um, and even that message needs to get all the way down, because most kids start thinking about what are they going to do when they're in high school, and even if they change 2 or 3 times, they're still thinking about it, and that's the time to help start shaping at least what their options are. And you and I, we participated in a high school teachers colloquium last year, and it was very rewarding to hear those high school teachers passion what they were doing. And I mean, that was just a small, piece of the pie. But if that could be expanded much broader, it's pretty mouthwatering the kind of benefit we could have, because this, the boom times are going to be great, although they're busier. And as you know, the non-boom times, where things get cut back because of the cyclical nature of our business, you just kind of knuckle down and tread through it. And once you realize that's the ride and don't fight it, it's not that bad.
You mentioned a little bit about USC's work with high school teachers. Can you say a little bit more about that? That's not just a one-time thing. They've been doing that for years, haven't they?
They have, and most of it was a little bit lesser scope, and I think bringing some to USC. And so this time it was an outreach across the country, and we did it virtually, so it was much easier for people to participate. And we had the full spectrum of high school teachers. We had the large city school districts, the little bitty town school districts out in rural areas. We had people that had teachers that had a passion on different aspects of the sciences that they teach, and I think they really benefited from, and they said they did. They really benefited from the discussion they were able to have across those few days, and probably re-energized them. But what really struck me was they need help. They need information and they need resources to be able to tap into, because you and I know the best way to really understand, do I want to do this or not when I grow up, is to learn about it and actually reach out and touch it. And some of the things that are starting to happen now, and based on some of the articles I've been reading, is more companies and even more schools are starting to facilitate more hands-on training, like in the summer, especially in the trades. That's happening really well right now. and then the what do I want to say? Um, my thought escapes me on what it was, but the information, just the information, and then visiting sites. My paper kind of one of the final recommendations for those that are wanting to pursue a career in energy is go visit some sites. Almost every site out there welcomes people visiting because they know once you see what's going on, you'll understand reality versus what's just been the hype in papers or something.
The whole concept of the field trips, the
Mm-hmm.
internships, the attaching to a mentoring where you get to know somebody who's doing what you might want to do, and all the rest of that creates the interest that not just publishing the pay scales or something
Right,
kind
right.
of used to do that. That's the way to uh, maybe a much better way for reaching out to Gen Z.
I think so. I really do. And it's going to take time to put that kind of program together. It's going to take a nucleus of universities and trade schools, and we're trying to get that started now in LA because there's a pretty large number of technical trade schools just in the LA basin, and if we can at least get them to work together, um, that's a good place to start changing mindsets because their mindsets are usually not based on reality and truth.
You talked a lot about the teachers needing help. I mean, clearly the quick, fast pace of technology, the whole idea of Seasoft and the smart oil field and all the rest of the oil field is a much more high tech place than it used to be, right? So
There is.
that idea of that it and again the misinformation about it is our energy industries low tech, dirty, dangerous, nasty businesses, but they really are at the forefront of a lot of emerging technology. So helping, I mean, obviously to get to the students, if you get to the teachers, there's a multiplying effect, and you can reach 10 students or 20 students instead of just one at a time.
Yeah.
Um, so that idea of, I mean, I guess here it used to be, and when you and I were going around, of course, maybe we may have had an interest in rock hounds or the different kind of technologies. But uh, the industry kind of thought that if it just told the people that it pays well or it has great benefits or used to have employment certainty for a while, and that was enough. I mean, they didn't really try to recruit beyond kind of friends and family of existing kind of workforce, right? So if you were in West Texas, it was a natural. If you were in LA, it probably was a bit of a stretch. But it seems now that we, again, gets back to this idea, resell what the energy industry is really about, do it by exposure, by the hands-on stuff that you tried to talk about it, that not everybody has to go to get a university degree. The certifications are an entry level as well. And so the industry really has to kind of wake up and reach out, doesn't it?
It really does. And I'm not sure why it hasn't already. I mean, it's prime time for it to get launched because we're at a crossroads as a country now too, and things are going to start moving pretty quick as things kind of settle down. And on the energy side, it's going to be more active than any of them. And if if the philosophy is embraced that we need everything, every type of energy to feed our system is successful, things are going to explode in opportunities, and people are going to have their pick of what they want to do.
Even this, after maybe several decades of fairly flat, plateaued energy demand, we now have these AI data centers that are telling us we're going to need a lot more energy of any sort or
Yeah,
whatsoever. So that kind of maybe is another new factor on the scene.
yeah. If we don't exploit every energy source, we will not meet the demand the way it looks in the forecast.
So there's a stretch goal there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, just one couple more questions, and then we'll thank you for your time. But again, your paper was kind of talking about that the number of U.S. colleges and university campuses offering petroleum engineering or degrees like this have dropped. I mean, it was from 35 to 20 or something like that. But non-U.S. petroleum engineering programs have increased. You know, so the maybe this idea that obviously a global industry, you need this workforce of from every country, and you need those that will have an international career and will work in many different countries. It's another exciting part of kind of the energy industry is that could be global travel and all the rest of that. So,
Yeah,
but the idea of are we going to be importing international engineers to help us with our gap? Are we going to be able to recruit enough American kids into this, or is the kind of the global nature, demographic nature, and in culture, country nature of the workforce kind of beginning to change a little bit because of, maybe this the oil industry is not cool in the United States, maybe it's still cool in the Middle East or something.
yeah. I really think that I think the global aspect is there already, and it'll be there to stay, and where it grows, whether it's domestically or or in pockets internationally, it's all big. That's all parts of the pie, pieces of the pie for the whole picture. And the biggest thing that I know several professors, and they're kind of concerned about what's coming in the near term, but we've gone through it so many times, and you come back out of it so many times. You got to go along for the ride and take advantage of opportunities when they come. And one of my biggest things to recommend for anybody thinking about our industry is find a role that you like. Find a role that fits what you like to do or would like to do, because things um, that you enjoy and you want to do in the working world, you will succeed in
You're just not working for the paycheck, you're working for your passion.
them. Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike, thanks so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you and have you on the podcast. But before we leave, is there anything else from the paper, from your experience, from your just opportunities to meet with some of these different students that maybe I forgot to ask, but you think is important to share with the audience for this, yeah, the USC Future of Energy. What
Yeah.
would your advice be to a new student thinking about a career in energy? You said a little bit before, but we'll let you
I,
have a chance to kind of conclude.
no, I did, but I'm glad, because I would like to conclude with that, because I think that's really the most important thing for people to hear and embrace. And one is for students, and even teachers that are guiding students, talk to people in the industry, learn from the horse's mouth what's going on.
We're
And
not
if
all
there,
evil, huh?
yeah, and if there's a facility in your area, go visit it, because that's a field trip or a tour of a local facility, plant or operations or whatever it is. It's priceless to go see and touch. And consider a summer job in a role you're interested in, which usually it's not the whole summer. Those roles aren't, but they are good feeders to the companies once you get that on your resume. And like I said before, the biggest one of all is pursue something you're interested in, because you're more likely to succeed in a field that you like. That's pretty much it.
So that's that summer job in Oklahoma oil patch kind of stuck with you.
It did. I still remember it today.
I think my first time was Evanston, Wyoming. But anyway, and it stuck with me too, first.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, I agree with your statement. So thanks very much. The future of energy does still depend on people. Um, it depends on the technology, it depends on the resources, but it's still run by people, and we need that next generation of energy workforce that is knowledgeable and passionate and involved. to make all of this stuff work.
We definitely do.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for the future of energy. Special thanks to each of our guests today and to our technical wizard, Abhi, for his important contributions to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you can automatically get access to all our new episodes. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.